I hereby call the Board of Supervisors meeting for December 19th to order. Ms. Branch, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Greenwood,
Here.
Mr. Hodges.
Here.
Mr. Garber.
Here.
Mr. Miskowski.
Here.
Chairman Moore.
Here. If we could please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentlemen, we have an amended agenda this evening. Any questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, I'll move adoption of the amended agenda.
Second. We have a motion and properly seconded. Any further discussion? Ms. Branch?
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Garber.
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
Next up, we have the public comment period. It's an opportunity for individual citizens to come up and just talk about any issue they'd like to bring up. You have 3 minutes per individual, 5 minutes per group. If you please state your name and your district residence. Public comment period is open.
Good evening, Chris Gallup, director from District 5, and I come before you tonight representing a group of concerned citizens living on the railroad and throughout the county. Like others, I was shocked when I heard of this board's handling of the transition in the treasurer's office. Rather than offer support, this board authored a letter to the judge requesting he appoint someone else of their choosing. In doing so, you discredited someone based on their predecessor before they even held the position. That's not how you support the rightful succession of responsibility. When the judge ruled against your request, you did just as you've done before. Irrespective of the outcome or quality of service, you removed resources from the office. In doing so, you left a single person to handle citizen needs and the responsibilities of that office, something that is still advised and has been highlighted by auditors in the past as bad practice. If removing staff from the treasurer wasn't meant to cause stress that might lead to a resignation or an error, then what was the intent? This is exactly what you did with Sally. And while I may have my own view of the performance of the previous commissioner of revenue, I never condoned petty games such as cutting staff and services from a function we depend on for revenue or collections. That's just not good business. If you want constitutional positions under the administration and finance, and do so with the process of changing Kingway into a county manager form of government. Then again, rarely has this board chosen to think for themselves. As one board member recently said, if we pay them, we ought to go by what they tell you. Your position is a paid position and one of leadership, not just rubber stamping. Now, if you find it interesting, the advice you choose to follow and what you don't, especially when it comes to asking the judge to break the law. Transparency does not exist in King William County. Far too much of this county happens in closed session, which really isn't that. I know for a fact there are more than one of you with loose lips that immediately go and talk about what was disclosed in closed session, some topics which could easily have legal ramifications. If that rule is so easily broken, and letters asking the judge to break the law are submitted against the advice of counsel, what other rules and laws are knowingly disregarded under this board's oversight? No doubt there has been a revolving door in the treasurer's office, but I ask you, what have you done to help with these transitions? You formed a finance board in 2020, which I was qualified for and not selected, yet 2 years later, not a single meeting has been held with this group. Now you're forcing a special election and a general election in 2023. These games you continue to play do nothing to serve the best interest of the taxpayers of this county. Last week, you displayed a personal Facebook post because your feelings were hurt, even saying it may sway your vote. What was displayed appeared to be the facts. Instead of just justifying your previous actions, some of you wrongfully grilled the treasurer, even suggesting that any warm body, even one that has been terminated, would fill the staffing gaps that you created. Maybe on a manufacturing line, a warm body would do so, but not in a role where experience, skill set, and qualifications matter. Conversations then moved to say the topic and decision isn't about politics, but that's exactly what it's about. It's not about voter politics, it's about office politics. The office politics I'm referring to have been going on for far too long. The ongoing battle for power and responsibility between administration and finance versus the constitutional officers has got to stop. The fact that you don't see this just demonstrates that you're a pawn in this ongoing power play, and that's part of the problem. Maybe not too surprising, given the lack of administrative, back office, and corporate experience in making senior level decisions. Not to mention personal influences and your desire to push through an agenda item when meetings run long. If you want something changed, go about it the right way, not in a way that further adds to the already toxic environment. Toxic leadership and environments are a drain on an organization, increasing turnover and causing countless hours of unproductive time that could be better spent improving the service citizens need instead of the hours spent complaining about the situation and architecting the next attack. A process like reconciliation cannot just be haphazardly moved from one organization to another using a single term in a resolution. End-to-end procedures should be documented with each department's responsibilities and the interdependencies clearly defined before approving such a change. These are King William processes, and multiple departments need to work together to achieve the overall objective, assuming they have the right mindset and leadership in place to do so. Throughout the course of this board's term, we've seen the resignation of the county administrator, commissioner of revenue, and multiple treasurers. Often, the reasons given point directly to one or more of these board members. Even with new people in these positions, a toxic environment still exists, and there are countless examples of departments not working together. Maybe it's time we start looking at what and who hasn't changed over the years, not blindly following the self-serving recommendations of others. If you open your mind and make decisions with the county in mind, you might find that the free advice provided by citizens in this county with experience and qualifications are sounder than those in which you are paying for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mary Sue Bancroft, ALIT 5th District. I don't even know how I can follow that, but I will attempt to. I've made some points similar to Chris's. In watching the board meeting last week, the conduct of the supervisors was inexcusable. That you decided to bring forth a personal Facebook page and attack the treasurer personally. I believe you all's bylaws do state that you are not to insult any citizens. And what you all did last week was very insulting to the treasurer. And then to follow up, Mr. Garber, I understand that you sent a message to Mr. Ashcraft asking if she had accepted help. I don't really understand that protocol at all to find out if she accepted help or not. I don't know that you have sat down with her and asked her why two of the people were not viable options at all. And I'm going to reiterate what Chris has said. There's a very toxic environment here in this building. And that's one of the reasons why I left, was because I couldn't take the toxicity anymore. One of the people that left my office left because she didn't want to work in the office. She claimed it was toxic. That's one of the ones that was offered to come back and help. The other one was let go for justifiable reasons, not eligible for rehire. Abby was in on that. She understood that decision and she agreed with that decision. But, you know, and she asked for a half a position. Last week, she was asking for half of a position and she already has 1.5. She wants to make it 2. So she only needed like a half a position more to make that 2. But Mr. Ashcraft asked for a position paying 50-some thousand at a minimum, and he got it just like that. Now I'm going to tell you, the treasurer has the ability to impact the county's revenue. And if you don't think she does, look back to see how much money I collected in penalties and interest in 1 year. It was 600 and some thousand. It was a record amount of penalties and interest. The treasurer has the ability to impact revenue. If you put her in a position that she cannot effectively do her job, revenue will be impacted. I'd like to say that the position that Mr. Ashcraft has gotten the permission will not impact revenue at all. If anything, it's going to take away from the revenue of this county. A $50,000+ position to support the board. All she was asking for was another half a position, salary wise. And you rang her through you just dragged her through the calls. And as far as like the letter that you all did write, I would venture to say that the county attorney was probably asked about that and advised you all not to do that. And I bet you did it anyway. So how much did that cost the county when he told you not to and you did anyway? That amount of money should come out of y'all's personal salaries because it was a personal decision. You all have let this, everything that's happening is a personal decision. You represent over 3,000 constituents. Each one of you represents over 3,000 constituents. I'll guarantee you those constituents do not agree with your personal attacks, and it needs to stop. So that's all I have right now.
Mr. Chair, normally we don't respond, but I do want
No,
to
we do not.
respond.
We do not. Thank you.
You can get up and make a comment yourself. We're not allowed to speak.
Well, we have in the past.
He's right, we have, but you can still do it later.
Anyone else? Mr. Garber, you're more than welcome to stand and as a.
No, I'll remember that when one of y'all go off the hinges and respond to someone. I'll remember that.
I just think it's better if we take the temperature down a little bit before we respond to anything that was said. That's just my opinion. But again, you're welcome to handle it however you want to handle it. You're an individual. I'm just encouraging some
The only thing I wanted to
deep
say,
breaths.
I did ask if she had accepted help. It was probably a full word email. And Mr. Ashcraft said, yes, she did. Because we asked her in the meeting if she was going to accept that temporary help, and she said, yes. So what's inflammatory about that? Was it any inflammatory statement made in that email that you're referring to? Well, she had been offered help in the past and did not accept it.
I don't think it's supposed to be dialogue.
Okay, enough,
That's it.
enough. With that, public comment is closed. Gentlemen, we have the consent agenda. If I could get a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Ms. Branch?
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski,
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
All right,
Chairman Moore.
Okay. Next, we go into a public hearing for ordinance 14-22, changes to the King William Code, hearings of the Board of Equalization. Does anyone want, Ms. Branch, are you going to preface that?
The ordinance change that we are proposing is simply to remove one line from the ordinance to allow the Board of Equalization to complete its work. And so instead of it saying that they must conclude their work by April 1 of the year in which they were appointed, it follows along with what state code says and says the expiration of their term is defined by the Code of Virginia. And the background and the reason for that is because our current situation with our current reassessment is that the first hearings cannot even begin due to code and whatnot until March 5th. And so there's a very real possibility that they may not be able to finish by April 1st.
All right, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 14-22. 3 minutes per individual.
Once again, Chris Couch, District 5. I didn't plan on speaking, but I will say that obviously this is going to be required. You think your Board of Equalization may see more appeals than you thought. Having had a brief chance to review my reassessment, I've noticed errors on the land valuation, 2 chimneys instead of just one. There's one giant chimney standing out of my house. For some reason, there's 2 on there. 2 sheds were added. No square footage was measured. The pictures show that they didn't even get out of their car. My neighbor's got land valuation issues, and I know some other comparable things. And there's even undervalued things, or there are things that are they're valued at something that's just ridiculous. It's nowhere near fair market value. So here we are again. reassessment that, I hope is better than it was in the last, and I do believe it is. And I will say the assessor's office was very generous and very helpful when I come in and talk to them about some of these things. I do have an appeal scheduled for that. But I would encourage all citizens of this county to review the data on your property card, because that is the important part of this reassessment, to get the data right, so that we can continue to reevaluate the properties in this county. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? I'll go ahead and close the public hearing for ordinance 14-22. Gentlemen, do we have a motion to approve ordinance 14-22?
Motion to approve ordinance 14-22. Second.
We have a motion properly second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just a quick question. It may not go under this ordinance, but I noticed also, because I have my sheet here, as Mr. Couch was saying, the bills came out and it doesn't have the correct number of days allowed to have appeals either. Is that included in this too, maybe, or is this just for the Board of Equalization?
It's just for the Board of Equalization.
I'm okay with that.
Ms. Branch, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Garber.
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
Aye. Under old business, we have the fire district maps. Chief Stacy Reeves is going to give us an update.
Good evening. How are you guys?
All right, yeah.
The last time we talked about fire district maps, we discussed ISO PBC study that prompted some questions about the district lines as to where they were in reference to the firehouses themselves. So what you see in your packet, did you guys get the updated map? With the red lines through the districts. So if you could look at that one, the red lines represent where the two fire companies would most closely meet at the road in front of the house with equal times from the firehouse to the address. However, we took the boundary line and drew them on the backside of the property lines of the street address, so that people looking across the street from each other wouldn't be getting two different first due fire districts. This is only for CAD dispatch, and it's pretty self-explanatory. If you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
The lines of separation, are they state routes?
They were roads,
Okay.
and I think most of them were state routes. Basically, what they did was they kind of got close, and they picked a generic road that they could easily divide the boundaries with. As we started moving towards doing the study for response times and stuff like that, we realized that the boundary lines weren't necessarily where they needed to be, but then it's difficult to explain to why one person across the street from the other, we get a different fire company. So that's why we did this study based on drive time from firehouse to the address. So if you leave one firehouse and the other firehouse and drive towards that street address, these were where all the cutoffs kind of met on the roads. And then we drew the boundary line behind the properties so that it would either be on one side of the road with, both sides of the road in that district would be on one fire district versus split down the middle of the
So
road.
this is pretty much property boundary lines.
Yeah, that squiggly line you see is so squiggly because it goes on the backside of the property line instead of splitting down the middle of the road.
All right.
And then the trade-offs, if you look at the northwest side where Station 1 goes all the way up to a few properties before you hit the Caroline County line, and it absorbed some of the green areas, Company 2's district. And then you look a little further down, Company 2 absorbs some of Stations 1's district. We did a brief study on these boundary line adjustments based on those areas. And the trade-off for call volume was almost matched. So it's not like one company's gonna get burdened with extra calls versus the other. It's just trying to put the boundary lines in the middle.
Is this a manual action or is it somehow automated?
We did this using Google Drive Out with utilizing no traffic and speed limits.
But when the call goes into the dispatch, that dispatcher, does they have any automation that tells them who to tone?
This layer does that. So when the call comes in, it shows up on a map on the screen. They click on the screen and then it'll tell them what the first, second, third do is. And this map outlines that first, second, third.
And this is effective immediately, I assume? Or after tonight?
No, well, kind of, sort of. This is, so I went and met with all the chiefs in the county and we all agreed that this is the right path to take. However, these are very close, but not engineer close. So this map will get sent to the GIS company, the engineering company, to make this layer completely accurate. And the lines should be very close to what they are. We just need your support moving forward with it.
Gentlemen, if there are any questions before we ask for a motion to approve this?
That's self-explanatory to me.
Yeah. And so
Motion to approve.
Second.
have a motion to approve, seconded. Ms. Branch, if you call, roll.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
Aye. And Chief, continuing to the Safford grant.
Apologize, I didn't catch a typo. It's safer.
Safer.
Yes. So a little over 2 years ago, you guys, well, roughly the same time frame, you guys approved for us to move forward with the Safer grant to hire 13 people to bring our staff in daily to 7 people. And over the last couple of years, we haven't been able to achieve the award of the Safer grant. However, we did pick up 7 of the 13 positions. The 6 left would provide that extra 2 per day. So you would have 7 people on, right, currently we have positions for 5 per day. And these extra 2 positions would give you 7 per day, which greatly expands the abilities of the staff to spread out in the county as needed. Everything else that we presented 2 years ago is growing per the projections, actually probably a little bit more aggressively than what we predicted. We predicted around 400 homes over 5 years, and these 13 people would have put us, if we had gotten it immediately, where we needed to be to serve citizens in the area of the county that was being covered by Station 1 and last us for several years. However, the growth has been a little bit higher than what we had expected. So we projected 400, and I believe somewhere around 300 of the homes have been built with counting 2020 as well. And I think we're projecting to add another 180 to 200 on top of the current stuff that's already approved over the next couple of years. So it's growing pretty quick. And if we want to stay on top, it would be my suggestion to support at least going after the Safer grant, which has changed its platform to now they do cover 100% for 3 years, cover all of your benefits for those 3 years. They will allow you to convert part-time to full-time. And I think that's the biggest part of the changes that they did with the grant. So at year 4, the county would have to consume the salaries and benefits. But for 3 years going forward, from the time that you're awarded until that 4th year rolls around, they pay 100%. I just need your support. Any questions, I'd be glad to.
Yeah, what are you asking? Cause
It's
I'm
6.
still not sure,
It's 6 to finish out the 13 we originally asked for 2 years.
but you never got the Safer grant at all.
We did not.
And I thought that's how we approved it was on, if we got the safer grant.
Correct. But we hired 7 with ARPA, which was approved by the board.
Right.
And it will
With
consume
what?
those salaries this year. So this 6 will finish out the 13 position.
So
Is that from, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
from the ARPA grant?
Well, from the, yeah,
The
from the
7,
federal funds, yeah.
So we haven't even budgeted for that yet.
No, we have.
478,000.
Yeah, it's in this year's budget.
Yeah.
coming up.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask.
Right, no, we
So-
knew
so-
about that and we
Yeah,
discussed it
yeah,
at the time,
yeah,
as whether or not
I
we
know.
could cover it
So,
once.
so the $478,000, the 7 that we hired, the SAFER grant has expired on, they'll be folded into the budget. So
Yes.
do we know? So this is gonna be the 4th year? These additional
Well,
6
no,
would be
we
the 4th
did
year?
not get the SAFER grant. What we did
I
was
know.
we had applied for the 13 under the SAFER grant. We didn't
We
get
got
it.
7 then.
No,
we
we
hired 7.
hired 7 using federal American Recovery Act funds, ARPA. Which was the 428,000, which we knew about at the time. And I remember distinctly having the discussion with Natasha at the time of whether or not we were good to cover that. And we were told yes. And so this is asking to apply for a SAFER grant to cover the additional 6 that we're short. Whether or not we hire them, if we don't get the SAFER grant, it's going to be a budgetary decision. It's up to us. But right now, that's not what we're discussing. It's just whether or not we want to approve him to apply for the SAFER grant to try to fill out the 13 that we had initially gone for by asking for.
So it's
6.
no obligation. If we are awarded the grant, there's no obligation to accept it.
You do not have to accept it. However,
However.
there are some dire consequences for not accepting a safer grant. Usually you omit yourself from being able to apply.
It's all right. So if we get the SAFER grant, we're going to want to take it. That's 3 years of firefighter EMS salary at 100% coverage. The question we'll have to answer is if we don't get the SAFER grant, do we want to try to find some funding somewhere to increase some positions in some manner? But that's going to be a decision we make after we find out whether or not we get the SAFER.
Correct. This is solely to decide whether or not you guys approve us applying for the safer grant. If we do apply, we won't be awarded until at the earliest September of 23. So once we're awarded, once we go into the period of grant performance, then you have 3 full years of salary coverage. In the 4th year, you have to be budgeted to pay the salaries of the employees that you hired with the safer grant funds.
I just want to make a note. I contacted HR today and I asked them how many new positions this board has created since January of 2020. That's 30. Not counting anything, not counting these 7 or what we may ask for in this upcoming budget. Just want to point that out to y'all. I could share that email with y'all, the answer. So how many county employees do we currently have? It's less than 300. isn't it?
Oh,
So,
115, 120.
so we've increased manpower, I guess is what you would call it, by what, 40%, 30%?
Between those two.
Okay, that's all.
Public safety is the bulk of that.
I was going to say, I can count dispatchers, firefighters.
Sir, no.
police.
I can take the question on if I think. And that's because I don't quite remember it like Travis remembers. I remember her saying at this point recently that we do not know where the funds are coming from. For the ARPA grant, the 478, because I specifically asked. And do you know right now where they're gonna come from or an idea?
Of course, you're speaking of
To
the
cover.
funds to come after the ARPA grant expires.
Exactly, which is approaching.
24.
General fund.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be in the general fund. We're just gonna have to see the revenue projection. There seems to be, new construction and personal property and, just good budget management, as you heard at the last meeting. That I think would allow us to cover that part of it. But obviously it's something we have to budget for going forward.
So what is this now? Another 470?
It'll be a little bit less because you're 6 people instead of 7.
But we wouldn't be budgeting to cover that out of general funds in this coming
No,
year.
Yeah, it'll
We
be
would
4 years out.
only, exactly.
but all grants come, go ahead.
Yes, they do.
Chief, what's your current manpower under, according to your
5
tables?
per day in the station, 5 per day,
Sorry, your total force
Total
versus your,
force,
versus
19.
your manpower chart.
19 in the department.
Yeah,
19.
How many-
Are there any existing volunteers or all of them have left Station One?
We have 2 volunteers who are actively running calls. And I believe there's 1 who maintains their certifications and stuff through us. And then we have 3 active chaplains. They actually are as active as volunteers are. They come out anytime we call and actually come out many times that we don't even know about. So
All right, gentlemen, any further questions, Mr. Greenberg?
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we approve them applying for the grant. So I think that's a good place to start, and then we'll see what happens.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Ms. Branch?
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
Thank you, Chief.
thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Mr. Ashcraft is going to discuss the FY 24 budget preparation and the option schedule.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ms. Brown sends her apologies. She had a medical emergency, not to herself, but a member of her family this afternoon, and she wasn't able to make the meeting. We're hopeful things will work out for her. You do have the proposed schedule for the FY 24 budget. It mirrors the same timeframes that we did last year, obviously different dates. We would work in work sessions with your regular meetings. This started back in October in submitting documents to the department heads and the constitutional officers. And we've collected that data. We'll start in earnest here right after the first of the year of having meetings with the department heads, beginning to put together a document that we will eventually first we'll discuss much of that with you, and you will have the opportunity to invite whoever you would like to come to certain work sessions. And on March the 13th, we would propose the FY 24 document. And then the public hearing would be on March the 27th. And we would also have a joint meeting with the school division on March the 7th. Again, pretty much what we saw as a successful budget season last year, and we certainly can have more or less meetings depending on the volume of content that you discuss and how satisfied you are with the data that you're getting to make a good budget decision.
I think last year went very well. It was about as open and detailed as the 2 previous I've been through.
I would also call your attention to February 13th, because that is when the budget CIP and the tax rates especially would be an important discussion that you would have, and then that would be rolled into the proposal of the budget on March the 13th. And we know that the board's intention is to go down to 1% in the reassessment, the equalization process, and we are building our budget around that premise.
Would that be affected, this date be affected by the BOE's completion or not?
I don't think it's going to be enough money for it to. I mean, obviously, there'll be some money up and down, but, no, it shouldn't affect the dollar amount or dollar range that we'll be working within. We'll know that information. We've already started that configuration now.
Yeah.
Commissioner Revenue's been very, very cooperative in providing that data with us.
Anyone see any?
Yeah, I've been picking through trying to see if there's any conflict dates that jump out at me. I don't see any right now,
I scanned it earlier.
based on my calendar. So I think
Is
that's,
it any reason that we're doing, Monday, March the 6th and then back to back, on March the 7th? Could it be a day in between that or?
Well, March the 6th would be your,
The regular,
right.
Yeah.
Well,
oh,
no,
works out.
March the 13th would be your regular,
I mean, the 6th would be
the 6th would just be a date to have a special work session,
Right.
and then the meeting with the schools is March the 7th. That's just, dates that have kind of been tossed around. We certainly can look at.
Is that what they are happy with, or is that subject to change, or?
Do you know if that? You mean, yeah. Okay. So their regular meeting that month is the 14th. So that would be an off date for them as well.
Like you said, we can push more in or maybe adjust them if we find
Sure.
out that, because like I said, it's so.
If I recall last year,
Yeah,
I don't think we used them all. I think we
Oh.
had them scheduled, but I think there were a couple of dates that we said that, we were able to get all that needed to be done and
Maybe if we could squeeze everything compressed March
Sure.
6th and do it early on the March 7th and then kick into the joint meeting,
yes,
for
we could
example.
possibly do that as well. That's right.
I was thinking more at the beginning when we start. You think we can get more done in the beginning? Because
Quite possible.
it's like we have two back to back. I'll be at it. Unless it might not be in person.
Might be burnout.
No, I'm not burning out. I'll be visiting my parents.
I might be burnout.
same. So I'm okay moving forward with this. If we've got to adjust, we'll adjust, but I think, as an outline, this works.
Get a motion to proceed with this
So-
plan? Motion, motion second, Ms. Branch.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
And Mr. Ashcraft, you could fill us in with the,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and ladies and gentlemen. We are approaching the Christmas holiday and two significant dates of closure of county offices will be Friday and Monday of next week, the 23rd and the 26th. County offices will be closed and reopen regular time on the 27th. And then per the state calendar, January 2nd is also a county holiday in which the offices will be closed. In January, there's a full calendar of meetings. The Planning Commission, the Rec Commission, Social Services Advisory Board will have its first meeting on January the 10th. That's the first time that group will get together. EDA will meet on the 11th. And then you go back down further into January and Dr. King's birthday will be observed on January 16th. And that also is a county holiday. So looking at a few notes, it was mentioned in citizens' comments of Pearson's appraisal and their work in scheduling appointments with our residents. I've talked to Mr. Pearson every day, sometimes more than once every day. And he's very, very pleased at this point with the, first of all, the number of appeals. They've been able to handle many, many phone calls and resolve a great deal of information just that way. But folks that have come in and made their appointments and sat down in this room and also in our conference room, they seem to have left with with a general understanding as to how that data was, retained. And in many cases, Mr. Pearson's been able to adjust up or down, based on the meetings that have taken place. He feels like he's ahead of schedule. He doesn't know exactly when the last, meeting would take place, but he feels like that, the bulk of those meetings have already been held. But he is scheduled to continue to meet with people until January the 16th, I believe was his final, date for those meetings. We encourage the public, first of all, if residents have not received their notice, that is something that we need to know as soon as we can. And there is some return mail that we're in the process of answering now. Hopefully that getting that forwarded on will we'll be able to identify everyone that owns real property. But we know there's going to be some that falls through the cracks. So if anybody knows anybody who has not received their notice, then we need to get their name, their address, and we can give to them personally, whether electronically or some other way. But it looks like that the majority were sent out. We hired a printing company to get that done. They did a good job for us. And we're moving forward with that process. So are there any questions on that before I?
No, I talked to him today also, and he felt that it was rather light on the responses.
He's got a good team in his office. Everyone that answers the phone is knowledgeable. They don't have to scramble around and try to find data. They just pull it right up. There has been a question, I think, Mr. Hudgens can help me with this, maybe some photographs that maybe that the assessor went out and took.
Right.
They might need a little bit more of those to put on the online.
They've got all the photos, but our real estate software company is still working on how to upload them all the new photos for everyone's lots, but we've got them.
Mr. Etcher, I just wanted to clarify, like you said, the assessor, the Board of Equalization dates January 16th, but also it says just to appeal to the assessor, they have till December the 23rd, but that's not 15 days from when we received this notice. Did you ask him if he'd stay a little
They
longer?
will, that will be extended without a doubt. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's what I was
I think
mentioning
that we
earlier.
needed a date to try to a target date to get people, not to kind of sit on it.
Right.
But yeah, he'll be here
Yeah,
until
hopefully
the
most people
process
would have
ends.
already come in, but.
Yeah, yes.
Thanks.
Anyway, if anybody has any questions about that, and certainly the members of the public, please contact our office or contact the assessor or Mr. Pearson, personally, and they'll deal with it. Mr. Chairman, we are having a reoccurrence of COVID. We've joined a number of Middle Peninsula and Northern Neck counties that are now up to a medium exposure rate. We were low for a little while, not very long, and now we're back up to median. So we would encourage folks to protect themselves in every way possible. We're not at a point where we're back to masking or anything like that, but there's a number of places that people can get COVID vaccines. I know the drugstores in our neighboring counties and localities, you can do that by making appointments, of course, your personal physician, and et cetera. So we're keeping a watch on it statewide. I think the exposure was 14% over the weekend. And that number seems to be going up and down as the holiday season unfolds. We were very fortunate to understand that there were federal infrastructure money that could be available to the county for economic development purposes, and we scrambled to meet the deadline of $4.2 million that would be aimed at Commerce Park. There was no county match on that money if we were able to get it. It would be, for sewer, extension because we already, have plans to run water down there. Steve, you handled that. Do you have anything else you want to say on that?
Just that we're extremely eligible. So we're very hopeful that it's something, and it's just, one of these opportunities that we're not gonna get again. Have a grant that's no match on something like this.
What's the time frame?
They said they would let us know, I think in the spring.
Yeah. We're positioned pretty well for it because we already have a product and there's already activity there and they understand with, the application explained the history and how it remains unfinished, and how this piece would kickstart many of the lots down there that were just purchased by the new developer.
Would that fix the problems that haven't been completed, not counting water and sewer?
No, sir, not to my knowledge. This would just be the utility extension, yeah. So. The new water tower, the construction plans are about 95%. They're still trying to tie down the land, with the property owners to get that all straightened out. I know that the board went on record of approving that a month or so back, but seems like we're pretty close to doing it.
We've recorded that.
Yeah, okay, so that's all in good shape. And then you recall the FY21 audit was delayed and we had to notify the state to let them know that we're going to need extra time, and we were able to do that. And of course, that audit has now been completed and the board has accepted it. We need to do the same thing for FY22. We just don't think it's going to be quite as long. The field work by the auditor should take place in earnest after the first of the year. So it would be our hope that at least in the first quarter, we would be presenting the FY22 audit for your acceptance, and then we should be on a track now to have the FY23 audit, which would end. The data would end on June 30th to be finished on time next year or later. Well, yeah, next year, probably November or December of 23. So we're back on a schedule that I think we need to be on that. So, Mr. Chairman, also in your packet is some information on the animal shelter, building permits and other kind of data. And if you noticed, December was a very, very busy month for our building officials and building department, despite it being winter on the horizon. There's still a lot of activity out there, and also VDOT sent their report. And if you recall, you approved 5 roads to be put on the secondary 6-year plan. And they have actually started their planning to upgrade the first one, which is Route 6634 Kentucky Road. Probably won't be much in the way of paving or construction until maybe the latter part of the winter or spring, but they have a lot of due diligence they have to do to prepare for that. And then if they follow the order that's on this list, Sandy Point Road would be the next one. So I'm open to any questions any member of the board might have regarding the report.
No, I would like to mention with the COVID threat that there are still new free COVID tests available. COVID.gov, and fill it out. And I got mine today, ordered it last Wednesday or Thursday.
You still get those by mail, and as I mentioned, the health department also has, I believe, some kits as well. And of course, your private physicians as well as your drugstores.
Mr. Ashcraft, the audit that we are currently asking for an extension on, or are we looking at doing that in-house, or are we gonna need some help from?
No, I think we're gonna be okay. It's just a matter of having the auditors clear their calendars to come in and see us. The data is, has pretty much been tabulated, as well as with the schools and social services and all, everybody else.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, going into Board of Supervisors comments. Mr. Garber, why don't you start us off?
Well, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year and all that. I want to apologize to the board for the way that I acted about the responding to individual public comment. I actually couldn't help myself. That email, the treasurer was also included in it. It was not hiding anything from anyone. So once again, I want to apologize to y'all. Apologize to everybody in the audience. That's not who I am. I usually sit up here and take it. That's it.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yeah. Did what exactly what Mr. Garber said, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. You know, we're not supposed to say that, but I'm gonna say it anyway, because I'm retired now, so I can say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year instead of Happy Holidays or whatever the new correct form of whatever you're supposed to say, but looks like we have a nice crowd too that showed up. Thanks for everybody's comments. Looks like a few heated comments, but like I said, we just have to listen, and some of that stuff, like I said, I'm not gonna be heated response either, but all that stuff is not true either, so you don't see all the information that we have to go through, so just remember that too, so. Thanks for staff for looking and doing everything, trying to keep the meeting short this time, and Chief Reeves, thank you. So, yeah. And thanks the Lord for a good year. Thanks.
Mr. Hodges?
You're gonna jump on. Just Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I will say Merry Christmas. And we'll always, but just the only comment I'll make about any of it is that when you're reading this state code, you gotta read the whole thing and not part of it. And it's a lot of detail in those codes that if you read on down there are other options in those things, but I'm not gonna go further than that. It's situation's been taken care of and we'll move on from here. On Saturday, me and the wife went out to the Virginia Veterans Cemetery in Amelia, and it was really moving, folks. It was a ton of people out there. I don't know where they all came from, but and we came from West Point to go out there, and we laid wreaths on the graves out there, and very touching. But I'd suggest anybody take kids out there to do those things. It's an annual thing. And they do advertise and they do ask for money to buy the wreaths, and they had way more than they needed this year. So it's a very good program that is working. And that's all that.
And Mr. Buskowski?
Since COVID was a topic of discussion, it's been brought to my attention that there's going to be a vaccine clinic at the Upper Senior Center. The Upper Senior Center, right? On January 10th from 2 to 6. So anybody that's interested, spread the word. January 10th, 2 to 6, Upper King William Senior Center. This closes out 11 years for me. It'll be a long time, isn't it, Stephen?
Yeah.
Right. And I've learned over 11 years, there's not a lot you can, count on for certainty. One day to the next in this position. But one thing that I can say with certainty is that this time next year, I'll be sitting in on my final meeting as a member of this board. Now, there's a few things that I think are important that I want to shepherd through in these last 12 months, internet being a big one of those. So I look forward to getting that work done. And then I look forward to spending money nights with my kids. Merry Christmas, everybody. And we'll see you in January.
Very good. I'll add my Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and Happy New Year to everyone else. Please be safe. Not only yourselves, but watch out for what's going on the roads we've all heard about some weird accidents happening out there. So again, be very safe. I would like to recognize Chief Akeem Washington, Manga Hick Volunteer Fire Department. Chief up there, good to see you. I want to comment on some of the comments, but I guess I'll refrain and leave it as it is. There are some misunderstandings apparently. I'll leave it at that. If I could entertain a motion to enter into closed meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move in accordance with section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia to convene in closed session to consider a personnel matter involving the appointment of individuals to boards and commissions, the Board of Equalization and the VA 250 Commission, and the promotion, performance, salary, or appointment of a specific public officer, appointee, or employee, and in accordance with section 2.2-3711A3 of the Code of Virginia regarding the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and the disposition of property located in Kennington, because discussion in an open meeting may adversely affect the bargaining position and negotiating strategy of the board.
Second.
I have a motion properly second. Any further discussion? Ms. Branch.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Garber.
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
Aye. We're now in closed session. I don't anticipate it taking very long.
See, after my whole deal last year that I told you about, I've had to just kind of leave it rolling, right?
I need a chill.
Uh-oh. First year was no, first it was that year, but that's points.
Is there a motion to reconvene?
So move.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Ms. Branch.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I move SR1.
Second.
Motion made, probably second. Ms. Branch.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
We have two appointments, actually three appointments to make. One first to the Board of Equalization.
All right, well, I'll just go ahead and read resolution 22-103 with the appointments as follows, and this will be appointing a slate to the Board of Equalization. From the first district, we will nominate Ms. Sandra Willis. From the second district, Mr. Vincent Gaines. From the third district, Sergio Tassinari. The fourth district, John Turnich. The fifth district, Jean Greenwood. Alternate number 1, Frederick Crops from District 3. And alternate number 2, Gregory Henrik from District 2. District 1. No, it's Kentucky Road. West Point, West District 2.
But he put one.
Well, I think he made a mistake. Unless there's a Kentucky Road in town I'm unaware of.
Good catch. Okay, do we have a motion made?
Second.
Ms. Branch.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski,
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
Next, Mr. Chairman, we have resolution 22-104, which will appoint individuals to the VA 250 Planning Committee. That committee will serve a term following the commemoration period of 2022 to 2026. For that, we appoint Ms. Nita McIntyre and Ms. Kimberly Colvin.
And those two will join the
The
existing.
already appointed slate,
cadre.
yes.
Already appointed. Motion made, second.
Second.
Ms. Branch.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure, been an experience and a pleasure as chair. Good luck going forward next January 9th, I guess. With that meeting, motion to
Motion
adjourn.
adjourned.
Second.
I'll go ahead and do it right. Ms. Branch.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Chairman Moore.
Aye.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Go on a second.